Welcome to the AI Queens podcast, the show where women entrepreneurs learn to ditch the overwhelm, embrace AI, and build businesses fit for royalty. I'm Erika Stanley, your host and tech expert, here to deliver tools, tips, and actionable strategies to help you scale smarter. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the AI Queens podcast. Today, we have a really special guest. I've got Vanessa Chang with us today. She is the co-founder of Bernie, the writer at Regarding Human, and a former VP of Strategy and Operations. She focuses on unhyped AI insights for overthinkers, which I can totally relate to, and exploring what actually matters when everyone is chasing different AI tools. Vanessa, thank you for being here and welcome to AI Queens.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here and talk about all the things.
I'm so excited to have you. I feel like we've had a whole alumni class of the She Leads AI folks that I met at the conference, these like brilliant women that I met at this conference back in October. And I related so strongly to your talk. I think you and I are the same age. We probably grew up in similar households where we were told over and over again, like, oh, you're so smart. And AI is, gosh, every day, I feel like AI makes me feel simultaneously so smart and also really dumb. Every single day. It's both humbling and enlightening, and I love that about it. But I want to start off by asking you. It's the same question I ask every single person on this show. When it comes to AI, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions, and a lot of them are BS. What's one in particular that you know of that is total BS?
I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to ruffle some feathers, but it's this common belief, especially now, that AI makes you dumber. And I think that's BS because that is an incomplete statement. AI makes you dumber if you do not know how to use it. And the best way to know how to use it is to know yourself, how you think, and what you want out of it.
Nice. All right. Can you go a little bit more into that? Like know thyself, right? So
Know thyself.
what do you mean by that? How are we going to keep from getting dumber by using AI?
Yeah. So what I love to tell people when it comes to AI, because there are a lot of apt, I think, analogies and metaphors for what AI does. And like you described it perfectly in the beginning, in that it can amplify our curiosity and our capabilities. And at the same time, it very much minimizes sort of how we've kind of measured ourselves in the world, right? So it can have this amplifying effect, it can have this minimizing effect. And one of the things that is very true to me, regardless of like any situation that you try to apply AI, is this. AI is essentially the blanket that we throw over dysfunction to give it shape. And I think all of us individually, through no fault of our own, have moved through life, our careers, our own day-to-day patterns with sort of these acceptable dysfunctions because of operating within a system, right? We can call it late stage capitalism. We can call it sort of like corporate culture. We can call it like education system. And there are things that AI is kind of bringing to the forefront because of its presence. It's giving shape to a lot of things. A lot of people talk about AI in the workplace. For me, I talk about the dysfunction around our lack of self-awareness, and not necessarily just in quote unquote that personal development, right? Self-help space, which is very much legitimate and should not be minimized. I speak to it also very specifically around the dysfunction around our relationship to how we think, because we assume that it is automatic. We assume that like we just sort of know. But the reality is our thinking patterns, how we think, how we show up in the world is very much determined by a variety of factors that we are never given space and time and frankly permission to explore. And so it affects how we show up in work. It affects how we show up in life. And it certainly shows up in terms of when we intersect with AI through ChatGPT, Claude, building things, etc. So know thyself is really not just like what you want or like in a spiritual sense purely, but also know thyself in terms of, huh, how do I best digest information? What's the information I drive on? What's the information that I'm missing? What's the best way for me to sort of retain this, especially when I hang out with Claude or ChatGPT and it's feeding me a lot of information?
I totally feel that. I feel like I use Claude I've almost exclusively switched to Claude these days. But I think it was true with ChatGPT before, and I also use Gemini, I also use Poppy, is we're going to these tools and we're sparring back and forth, which I think is it's so much easier to do as an independent business owner and you don't have a business partner, you don't have colleagues to spar back and forth with. So you're brainstorming, you're going in and it's just like stacking these conversations in the sidebar. And with my type of brain, it's so gratifying to have the conversation and I feel like I'm getting the answers I needed. I'm learning so much. There's like actionable information in there, and then it is completely gone. It's immediately gone. I talking about putting blanket over like to create the shape. That has been really enlightening for me to realize like, oh, I am wasting so much time having these conversations instead of acting. It is allowing me to and almost encouraging because it wants to keep chatting. It's encouraging me to continue the conversation rather than the action. That's how it manifests in me.
Yes. For those of you listening, when as soon as she said that, I just kind of gave her the nod because number one, I empathize with this process so much. You said it, like you and I are very similar, I think, and we're both like neurospicy. We have, I think, very similar patterns where and I think a lot of other people, women in particular, have really leaned into this idea of using it as a thought partner and exploring every possible nook and cranny, right, of a situation because there is benefit to that. But I think to your point, and I love that you called out the self awareness, that there is a point of diminishing returns, right? In terms of, okay, I've expressed or I've kind of talked about this enough. What do I then put out into the world and experiment or take out of my head and into reality? And that's something in terms of being able to understand that is an example of like metacognition, right? Knowing when you, madam, now know when enough is enough. And it aligns with a lot of productivity principles that say like corporate people and tech bros talk about that there's like how much information do you actually need to act upon something, right? And the sweet spot, whether it's retired General Colin Powell or like executive coaches, will tell you it's around 37 to 40%. How precise they got to 37, I don't know. But they said the minimum, the base that you need is 40% understanding of a situation to go and make a decision or to go and do the thing. Because beyond that, you are in this sort of dangerous gray zone, right, of diminishing returns. And one of the things that AI as a product, so AI as a technology is amazing that we can do all of these things and we can kind of explore. But it's this is where it gets dangerous because AI is a business product right now. We use it in our businesses, we use it as tools, but we forget that we purchase these things, that there are companies that require us to always engage, which is why it's so tempting, right? To keep a rabbit holing and going into these conversations versus understanding what is my 40%, right? What is my 37 to 40% to go ahead and act? Because what this does when it's like we're using it as a business product, we forget that the the benefit, the learning comes from the doing, especially in making the mistakes. And I have one of the tenets that I try to live by is it's better to compound reality than it is to compound theory. I don't always live it because I'm so good at being in my head.
Yeah.
But that's been my thing for this year is how do I take all of this stuff that I am learning and that I'm amplifying through myself with AI and using it to compound my reality so that I can learn more and explore not just my inner world, but like what I can do for my business in my life.
I so I have an example just from this week. So, okay. all over Instagram, all over TikTok right now are these beautiful dashboards, these beautiful Claude coded dashboard command center things that everyone is building. And I like I know better. I know better. I live and breathe this every single day. And I still got sucked in and was like, you know what? I'm going to make myself a dashboard. And I got in there and I found it. I like created and found a design that I liked. And I started to build the whole thing. And I spent so much time trying to build and connect this stupid dashboard. And luckily, because I live and breathe it every day, and because I'm like, F this. I do not need a dashboard. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be functional. Why do I want a dashboard? Like, what is the purpose? And for me in particular, I've got so much information coming at me from different places. So I've got Gmail, I've got my transcribed meeting recordings, I've got Slack. There's even my iMessages, text messages. I've got so much information coming at me and so much lives in my head that I don't have a centralized location where I can just look and be like, okay, what is going on and what do I need to prioritize? And so I said, scrap the dashboard. And I just went into not even coworker code. I just went into regular ass Claude and was like, all right, I have decision fatigue. I'm overwhelmed. Help me work through this. And we chatted back and forth and came up with a solution. It's not super elegant. I have all of the connectors. I built my first MCP connector, yeah, so
Yes.
to connect my Fathom with Claude, and so now I just have it as a project. I built a skill, I've got documents, I've got instructions, and I put it in a project, and now I just ask every morning.
That is gorgeous. That is so gorgeous. I know you say like, oh, it's just functional, but I want to introduce the concept of like elegance. Cause I know when we think of elegance in like a fashionista sense, right? Like Jackie O, Audrey Hepburn, like there's something very aesthetic
Oh,
about it.
I'm a brand designer. It's killing
Yeah.
me that this isn't a beautiful dashboard that I can put on Instagram.
But if you think about it, elegance is about sort of the minimum effort for maximum impact, right? That's sort of what the through line, right? The essence of elegance is. And I want to applaud you for taking that elegant track rather than we'll call it maxing, right? Everything's about maxing these days because you're absolutely right. And there are actually quite a few people doing pretty amazing things with these quote unquote dashboards. But then the problem is that when you and I, right, see kind of like the output of that work, we think, oh man, like have we need to have the same thing. I should be doing the same thing. And this is what happens with all of us, something I called like optimizing before orienting, right? Where like, oh, this is a thing. I absolutely can do it, especially with AI, but do I need to do it? Should I need to do it? Why do I need to do it? Right. And eventually you are very metacognitively aware that you kind of put the brakes on yourself and you used again this AI tool to recenter and reorient and say, okay, like what's my thing? Because you're absolutely right. One of the things I talk about all the time is that we're just overwhelmed and we're inundated, right? AI definitely accelerates that. But even before AI, we're managing all of this inbound, right? Our inboxes, your messages, your DMs, all of these things. And so it makes sense to want to have that solution. And that solution, especially in the age of AI, doesn't need to look like what you see in the social feed. You can create something that works for you. And the way you do that is knowing yourself. And that's exactly what you did with Claude. And also, can we please normalize not building out like super custom things all the time? Projects, regular chats, yes. Like you can get so much done with this stuff, but I don't know if you feel this, like I definitely feel this lately where like everyone's building like these sort of like very glossy sort of bespoke things all the time. It just makes me think like, like I should be recreating a chair so that I can sit in the chair versus like there's a pretty functional chair that I could sit in and just use and it suits me just fine and it gets the job done.
Yes. I With Claude Code, we could probably recreate the entire Adobe Creative Suite. But
Yeah.
why?
But why? Do I need to? Do I need to recreate that for myself? Like, let me think about this. I mean, if you were, say you were an entrepreneur and that is your idea and you have ways to like improve it, go for it,
Absolutely.
right? Do your thing. But for us, where we have other priorities, where we are oriented towards like no, this is like my purpose or this is my direction. Those are side quests we just don't need. And that's hard to determine unless you have like a healthier understanding of relationship with AI and also like, yourself.
I think you have to ask yourself what question or what problem is this solving in my life or in my business?
Right.
And what is the cost? The cost in
There's
time.
always a cost.
So
Yes.
the cost in time, the cost in not just the time it's going to take you to build it, but the time that is lost when you could be doing other things that are going to move the needle in a more meaningful way in your business. An example from a few months ago, I have been using this software called Signature Hound for years. It's how I create HTML signatures for all of my clients. It used to be free. They started charging, I think it's like $20 a year, which is nothing for a hosted HTML signature. And I was convinced that I needed to rebuild this. I'm like, I'm not going to pay their $20 a year. It used to be free. I'm going to build this myself. And I spent hours and it still was not formatting the email signatures correctly across Gmail and Outlook and Macmail. And I'm like, you know what? I will pay the $20 a year forever and just
Yes.
call this a loss. It's
Just pay it.
okay. It's
It's okay.
okay.
$20 a year, totally worth the trade-off. There is a calculus to it, and it's fundamental, I think, sort of leadership strategy, right? Or sort of time management strategy of determining, okay, is this worth the squeeze or not? We get this incredible dopamine rush with the AI, and rightly so, because again,
Yes.
we are doing meaningful things, but not everything is meaningful. And so being able to
Oh,
understand that
that's so quotable. We're
we can
doing
do
meaningful
meaningful
things.
things. Yeah, but not everything has to be meaningful.
Yeah.
It's it's a sense of FOMO, right? It's most represented in the sense of FOMO. It's like, I got to do the dashboard, or like, I can build this app, so we should do it. But this is where sort of like the you have to take a pause and sort of think, and not just sort of mindlessly kind of jump in to these work streams because, oh, guess what? We've already got 20 work streams behind us, right? To get the business to kind of, get to achieve these goals that we've already defined for ourselves. And, you know, with a technology like AI and also when it's positioned like as a business product to kind of keep you sucked in, right? It's really important to know thyself in that sense, to know when to put those brakes on or to put boundaries, right? Around that, or at least to have that framework to take a pause, to kind of take a look. And I would actually offer what you mentioned earlier, in these questions of yourself that I have had to train myself. This is something that I am trying to meaningfully do every time I see something on my feed is, and it's part of this critical thinking where you show up kind of like skeptical, right? A degree of skepticism. And the question I ask myself now is, so what? Is I want to give them props. Like, I'm not going to negate like what you did. Like, this is freaking cool. Like, and I'm glad that you did it. But when I get that itch and that urge, we know that feeling of like, oh, I should be doing this, or like, oh, why am I not doing this? I have to position myself and face myself and say, so what, me? Like, so what? What if you didn't build this, right? Where you can have this conversation sort of like in the moment when you are kind of feeling this urge and this instinct and this FOMO, and just be like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't need to do this now. Or if it goes beyond that gate of like, I don't know why I'm feeling this, but like I have this urgency, to then also go to that question of like, okay, then how does this fit, right, into what I'm doing now? Does this actually serve my needs? Is it worth that trade-off? I love that frame.
And I mean, this is not a new problem. This is not just AI. Before AI, it was still easy for me to get distracted in my business on these side quests. This has just amplified it. It's
Absolutely.
it is the first time that I have felt like I felt as a kid where I wanted to stay up late. Like when you're reading a really good book and you just can't put it down and you're so exhausted
I
and
still do that.
yeah, me too. And I do it especially when I go to visit my family because I know I don't have to get up super early in the morning. I'm like, I'm just going to stay up and read until 3. It's fine. But I find myself doing more of the AI exploration late at night because I'm not as worried about working on my business.
That's your acceptable downtime, right?
It is.
But when we think about it, Erica, it's no different than like the scroll time on TikTok, which I'm so guilty of late at night. And I can't get this out of my head because for me, that's been my Claude Code exploration time, right? Of like, okay, you've done what you needed to do. You've had your meetings. This is your quiet time. Ask, build or spec out things in Claude Code. And I don't know about you, but it feels the same the morning after because you stay up way too late. Did you achieve a lot? Did you explore? I do it in the name of learning. But the next morning, it's that same feeling when like like you stay up too late reading a book. I did that with the whole ACOTAR series. I know that feeling. But I also have that feeling of like, it felt like a Netflix binge where it's like, did I need to do that? Did I have any sort of takeaways? I never regret it with a book, full stop. But like with Netflix, I was like, did I need to watch all 10 episodes in one sitting? Probably not. And I think that's a skill set, right? That we're each going to have to learn how to develop because, as you said, that instinct was around way before AI, but now AI is making it very obvious for us that this is a danger zone.
And I like in my mid 40s now, when I pull those sessions, I feel hungover in the morning. My brain is not as sharp. I yeah. So my business is suffering the next day, even though
100%.
I wasn't taking the time away from my business. I'm
Uh,
huh.
100%.
This is
And
interesting.
because this is what essentially is sort of on a day-to-day sense, practically speaking, like AI without our own operational guardrails, right? And those operational guardrails, again, only come from, I mean, we could talk about global best practices, like what's good for everybody generally, but really it comes down to what's good for Erica's business, what's good for Erica's life and the way she thinks and she works. And that is, again, just sort of like that is the foundational kind of components, right, of those questions that you need to ask yourself, especially when you're working with AI, because it's so new for all of us. But to your point, to everything that we face, right, in life that demands our time, focus, and attention.
So many things pulling at us.
So many things. It's a ridiculous amount. And I will say this about AI, it definitely contributes to that sense, especially for those of us working, say, like in coworker code or working in things like Cursor, where, or we do this even with chats. You will have, no joke, at least 5 chats going or 5 terminals open, each with like 5 tabs within them. And to context switch between those, you think it's small. You're like, oh, I can do more. Like I'm amplified more. But the reality is that there is a cognitive cost, right, to all of that. And
There
there,
totally is.
there
It's
is.
it's like having too many tabs open on your computer, but they're all in your brain and also on your computer.
And also your computer, you're actively trying to manage them. And this is the weird part, Erica, is I notice in like discourse is, and this is my beef with optimization and productivity culture. I say this as like, I love productivity. I love getting ish done. But it's this thing of like, oh, we got to do more, faster, faster, faster without acknowledging like what the constraints actually are. And from a human sense, if we talk about these constraints of like, oh, well, like I'm not doing more, then it's like you're the bottleneck. This is what I hear a lot. It's like humans are the bottleneck. And I have to pause and step back because even from a hardware standpoint, right? Even laptops, computers, like CPUs, like they reach bottlenecks too. There's something called constraints and capacity, right? For a reason. And those are not bad things. Those constraints actually then require us to pivot or to approach things right in a certain way. We talk of constraints come up a lot when it comes to like creativity and creativity science, where constraints breed the most creativity, right? Because you have to work around these things. Whereas if you don't have constraints, it's not as interesting. And so I really push back on people who say like, oh, I do all of these things. And because of Claude Code. And again, do your thing, but understand, do you know what that cognitive cost in terms of the context switching is? And also, do you have enough constraints to actually create meaningful output and meaningful work? Because all of our vibe coded sites are starting to look the same.
Yeah. This conversation could not be coming at a better time. I literally have in my shopping cart on the Apple site a Mac Mini that that I am about to purchase so that I can have agents running
Yeah.
on the side while I am doing other things. And
Can I tell you something?
yes.
I have the exact same shopping cart up right now. You're not alone.
Oh my gosh, and I'm about to buy the Mac Mini Pro instead of the regular one because the regular ones are backordered until August. Y'all, it
Yes.
is it is April 9th today.
Yes.
And so I oh, well, I'll just get the bigger, faster one because by it like, if I'm waiting till August, will that one even handle what I need it to handle? I might as well just get oh my god, it's
We
a
make
sickness.
concessions. It's a sickness.
Oh,
And what I will say though is that investing in that sort of hardware to give you that capability, that's not, I think, what I'm kind of calling out, right?
I know.
It's the what's the volume? Like, do we need to turn everything up to 11, right? Like in this situation versus kind of giving you the capability. And I'll tell you the rationale for me is that it's conference season, right? And I travel a lot with my laptop. I have a very powerful laptop, which is great. I can do work from anywhere. But the problem is, even if I run it in caffeinate mode and clamshell mode, when it's in with me in my bag, I cannot do sort of agentic work. And I prefer the level of work that I do when I interact with Claude Code, right? So for me, it's like, all right, I'm going to have a Houston, a mission control,
Yes.
right? So I can call in, but not, again, being aware of like how and when I call in and making that available. And I'm going to have to figure out those edge cases. I don't know yet because this is unexplored territory for me. And I think for a lot of us, but no, you're definitely not alone in that. I'm not in open claw territory. Full disclosure, our household does have one open claw instance. We're testing it out. But because of that, I will tell you from that experiment, it's very promising. However, for me, Claude Code, mission control machine, like somewhere at home, is going to be more than enough for what
I
I do.
I think so. I think for me too. And I I'm in the same boat. It's conference season. I'm about to start traveling. And I want it to live here.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives you that capability. It's more of like sort of that extension and that tether. And I feel like it's even a better way to use those instances because when we're at conferences, we're in the room with people, right? We are face to face with people in dialogue that I think by those scenarios and those situations, we're not going to have to deal with like the 50,000 tabs open, right? It is more about having the capability and power in those very like select doses in between having amazing face to face conversations,
And
making
I think
connections.
having that like level of separation as well.
Right.
So that I am more present when I need to be
Correct.
versus just constantly connected.
At my laptop staring in front of my monitor rather than being out in the world and supplementing, right, all of the learnings and the things that I'm doing.
Supplementing rather than replacing.
Correct.
I I wanna I wanna talk about you mentioned building things.
Yes,
And I know that you're currently building something.
I am building something. I'm
Do
building something with
do
two
you
other
wanna
people.
do you wanna
Yeah.
do you wanna talk about it or is this still a secret? I mean,
No,
it was on LinkedIn. It's not a secret.
no, it's not a secret. It's still it's early, but it's no longer a secret in that. So, for background, I've always been an AI consultant, right? For strategy, for implementation, it's always been sort of services, ideas, frameworks. Yes, I've built products. Yes, I've built web pages and things. But for the first time ever, I co-founded a company with two other people and I am building a full-on product where we are using Claude Code to build what is essentially a fraud detection buddy for senior citizens for a variety of reasons. Each of us are adjacent to kind of someone in that space. And so we really believe in it. It is a mix of kind of fraud detection, but also kind of like critical thinking and cognitive support. as any one of us who have elders in our life that we caretake, that we care for, we probably have had some type of conversation around, I got this call from the utility company. They're going to shut off my power unless I wire them this money. Right. And based off of countless conversations we've had with beta testers and users, it's pretty prolific. It's pretty scary how frequently it happens. And also, even more scary, it is how much people are actually falling for it because number one, it's hard to gauge what's real and what's not, especially in the age of AI. And then number two, especially when it's presented against a generation that hasn't had enough experience and training to kind of say like, should I be should I be suspicious of this? And what typically happens is that even if they are suspicious, a lot of that responsibility falls on us, right? Folks, their kids, other kin keepers, like within the family, within the community. And at face value, it doesn't seem like a lot, but given how frequently like the fraud kind of comes about, we wanted we wanted to use AI in a meaningful way to support people against these scams. So it's called Bernie. We are building it. It will go live hopefully pretty soon. We're recording this in April. We're planning on going live with it in May.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
That's soon.
it's very soon, and it's something where we're excited about because of this fundamental idea of using AI for good.
There are so many negative stories, so many people that are just vehemently anti AI. And I love this example of using it to do something really good. The reason I know about Bernie is because you posted about it on LinkedIn, but you you guys didn't just like come up with this and just like turn it into a product. Like this was part of a competition, right?
It was. Again, one of those things that I never thought was possible until AI came out onto the scene was we entered a hackathon that was co-run by Sabrina Ramanov, who's also an amazing member of
Yes.
she leads AI community, as well as communities of her own, and Marson AI. And it was over 2,000 people, over 200 teams. And my now co-founders, Danielle and Dan. Danielle actually came up to us and said, like, hey, we should do this. And Dan and I are like, sure, we've been wanting to collaborate. And we honed in on this idea where we all mutually agreed, like, yes. And the funny part, I'll tell you, Erica, is that obviously we didn't expect to win because we are not technical. We just did this for fun. But we ended up taking first place, which totally took us by surprise.
That's so cool.
It was pretty cool, not gonna lie. Danielle still sort of pinches herself when she thinks about it. And what I will offer to people, because you and I were talking about kind of going down these rabbit holes and like, oh, all these things that we could build. When we were planning on what to build, so for a hackathon, at least as for this one, you could kind of do some planning and figure out, okay, how are you going to approach the project? But the building would take place within like over 36 hours. And it was sort of virtual with people around the world. And we wanted all the bells and whistles, right? We had this grand plan for what Bernie kind of could and should be. But we decided, obviously, for the hackathon and knowing, right, our capabilities, kind of where to call it good. And we just essentially went with the philosophy of simple is better. And at some point, I'll be honest with you, like, especially with how I operate, I even told Danielle, like, after we submitted, I was like, should we have done more? Like, I feel like it's too simple of a concept. Like, it's a SMS agent, right, that talks to our elders to kind of help them assess, is this a scam? Don't click this, don't do this. And it ended up winning simply precisely for that. Sabrina and Marson both told us, like, this is a simple and highly effective idea that could help a lot of people. And having that as a theme really sat with me in terms of having impact. So it's like your dashboard. Having impact isn't about having it look sleek or having the most complicated or large code base, or does it work and is it helpful?
I've done a couple of build-a-thons, and we talk about the concept of an MVP. What is the simplest version of this that you can make work, before you walk out of the room today. MVP, for those of you, it's minimum viable product. And I always tell them that a simple working app is better than a really flashy, complex, broken one.
Yes.
And I I will tell you, in each one of the build-a-thons that I've hosted, every single person in that room walks out with a working app. We get it, we ship it at that point. And there is something really special about having this idea, being able to bring it to life with AI, and then through the process, like you said, you learn through doing. So through the process, they are learning how to then, okay, so this idea is good. I'm excited about it. It's viable. Now let's build on it.
Right.
What other things can I put in here that are going to make it even more impactful for users or for me if it's just for me? Like,
Right.
but that decision point of deciding, like, okay, this is the solution that will work for now.
And it's having, it really is about sort of business strategy, right? And business principles beyond like, can AI do this or not, is what's the stuff that's going to work and have that positive impact, right? On yourself, on your customers. And it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about compounding reality versus compounding theory and thinking. Because once you do the thing in that sort of focused, meaningful way, and you have your learnings, like you have your mistakes and your pain points, and we had a lot even during the hackathon. And now, right, as we're trying to build it, it's not like, oh, okay, well, let's immediately kind of implement it and put it in. It's like, okay, we're going to take these learnings and we're going to be able then to kind of apply those in the future or help us kind of shape that direction. And it is this kind of this bridge because I talk about overthinkers because I'm an overthinker where we can definitely noodle on something forever, but really the traction comes, the helpfulness comes, the impact comes from doing the thing and then going back and thinking about it and then reiterating again. There's an amazing book by Anne-Marie Lecomte, a neuroscientist, called Tiny Experiments. And if no one has heard of it or read it, it is a great read, a great reason to get off of Claude Code or Cowork or whatever you're working on and really understand this concept of tiny experiments and how helpful that is, especially if you are an AI practitioner or you're learning AI, but really for life in general, where there is a time and a mode for thinking and there is a time and a mode for doing, and having those complement one another. And that definitely affected, I think, how I allowed myself to approach the hackathon and how we're building Bernie.
I love that so much. I I cannot wait to see this once it launches. I think it's going to be so, so helpful. I mean, just the fact that you guys won this hackathon with something so simple, and I'm sure that there were very fancy, very like sleek,
They're
complex.
amazing. Yes, there were amazing things out there for sure.
So, congratulations. I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to continue having more conversations with you. This has just been so amazing. I'm so grateful to you for coming on and sharing such amazing insights with my audience. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
It's been so fun. I will gladly connect and talk with you, Erica, offline recorded whenever. And also, I mean, reciprocate that. It is that I found you through community, right? And She Leads AI. And to see you creating this platform, spotlighting people in their work and really empowering all of us, like through each other's stories and examples. And for me to be part of that, it's so cool. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's I think that's a great place to leave it. All right, Vanessa, if people want to connect with you, if they want to find you, what's the best way to do that?
I have a website, vanessachang.com, Chang. And that's where you can connect with me in all the ways. And I also have a newsletter regarding human that is more about the metacognitive stuff. So it's weekly that also corresponds with my YouTube content and channel. And something new actually is I co-founded something called AI Recess, which is more of like the tactical and the practical side, where we do. So my compounding theory is regarding human and getting people kind of familiar with some of the frameworks that I'm exploring and some of the topics that I'm exploring. And the compounding reality part is this fun project called AI Recess that I started with Logan Curry and Kevin Magnan, where we just encourage people to have a sense of play around AI. And it's very low lift, very casual, but either one would be great resources to stay connected and just see what I'm nerding out about.
Love that. Love that. And you're pretty heavy on TikTok too, right?
TikTok is my primary sort
Yep.
of place. Like you'll definitely find me there, and you can find my TikTok through either of the other AI Recess and regarding human avenues. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us this week. I cannot wait for people to hear this episode. I really appreciate you for coming.
It's been my pleasure, and it's so great to connect with you again, Erica.
Thank you. And to all of our queens, please, please go out and connect with Vanessa. And if you want to follow up on this conversation, we are both on LinkedIn. So be sure to hit us up there. Vanessa, thank you. And we'll see you again next week, queens. Thanks for listening to the AI Queens podcast. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow queen who needs to hear this. Want more tools and tips? Join the AI Queens Society over at aiqueens.com and start ruling your business with confidence today. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep reigning with AI.